This is Sean Radcliff. Welcome to another episode of Preservation Oaks. In this series, we introduce you to professionals from museums, cultural, genealogical, and historical societies across the United States. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the program. Good day, everyone. This is Sean Radcliff coming to you from Salt Lake City, and this is Preservation Oaks, the internationally syndicated original talk program on MicroStream Radio, where we feature interviews with professionals from museums, cultural and heritage institutions, historical and genealogical societies across the United States. Our main platform is preservationoaks.podbean.com. But we're also on almost every podcast platform as well as YouTube and Odyssey. So wherever you listen to the program, I appreciate it very much when you like, comment, follow, or subscribe. We give people a better understanding of these organizations. We let them know how they're supported, how each is unique to the communities they serve, what programs and events they currently have underway, and what services they offer to the public and their members. We believe this information is vital for people to know how to work with these organizations and how important it is to join, support, volunteer with, and donate to one or more of these core societies. Remember that your donations are tax deductible. Each guest organization on Preservation Oaks brings with them a truly unique viewpoint and perspective around how they tell the stories of their communities, how they continue to be relevant for the times in which we live, and what kinds of exhibits and volunteer opportunities they've created. This makes listening to each episode of the program interesting, fun, and diverse. If you're listening and you'd like to be a guest on the program, or if you have questions or comments about the program, spin off an email to preservationoaks@gmail.com. All right, that being said, let's get this show snapping. Our historical events for this episode. On August 6, 1935, William Coolidge obtained a patent for the cathode ray tube, a critical ingredient of TV and other electronic applications. On August 12, 1930, Clarence Birdseye patented a method for packaging frozen foods. Where would we all be without frozen foods? On August 14, 1984, IBM released MS-DOS version 3.0. On August 20, 1930, Philo Farnsworth patented a television. And happy birthday on August 8, 1861 to William Bateson, who was a famous English biologist who invented the term genetics. A couple of jokes. You know you're a genealogist if you've ever tried to inspire the next generation by whispering into an infant's ear, "Genealogy is fun." You know you're a genealogist if the local Genealogical Society borrows books from you. Let's have some tea, Twinings tea. Love Twinings tea. Now you can email us anytime at preservationoaks@gmail.com. Preservation Oaks is available for listeners on nearly all podcast platforms, Facebook, Odyssey, and YouTube. On our next episode of Preservation Oaks, we'll be meeting with the Eudora Area Historical Society located in Eudora, Kansas. The Eudora Area Historical Society operates the Eudora Community Museum. The museum displays numerous exhibits devoted to Eudora's history. Themes explored in the museum include Shawnee Indians, Western expansion, the Oregon Trail, Eudora and the Civil War, Eudora as it developed in the late 19th century, Eudora's African American community, and the Sunflower Ammunition Plant. They tell an important story of America, and it'll be fun and interesting chatting with Ben Terwilliger, Executive Director, Eudora Community Museum. For this episode, we greet Bil McGrew, President of the Board of Directors of the Indian Creek Historical Society, and his colleagues, Jeff Christiansen, who is a board member of the Indian Creek Historical Society, Jim Shellhammer, the Secretary of the Indian Creek Historical Society, and Rick Mabary, Treasurer of the Indian Creek Historical Society. If you're a resident in the local area, this episode will help you understand what the Society has to offer, how you can participate and take advantage of the worthwhile events the Society sponsors, and how to best support them by volunteering and donating. Here's a brief biography of our guests. Bil McGrew was born in 1955. He currently farms on a Century Farm with brothers and son. Now, a Century Farm is a farm in the United States that has been officially recognized by a regional program documenting that the farm has been continuously owned by a single family for 100 years or more. Bill's been involved with the Indian Creek Museum for over 20 years. Jeff Christiansen grew up in rural Emerson, Iowa on a farm. He graduated from Red Oak, Iowa High School. Jeff spent his youth working for area farmers. He's been involved with horses all of his life, raising Shire horses and quarter horses. He owns and operates a business called Circle C Carriages, providing services with his draft horses for weddings, proms, funerals, farming, and showing. He's also the Iowa State Hand Corn Husking Association President, the Southwest Iowa Draft Horse Association President, along with being on the Indian Creek Historical Society Board of Directors. Jim Shellhammer is the Secretary of the Indian Creek Historical Society. Rick Mabary was born and raised in Montgomery County, Iowa. He's a second-generation Iowa farmer, as his parents moved from southern Missouri and started the Mabary Farms operation. Rick graduated from Nishna Valley High School and obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in farm operations from Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa. While attending college, he met his wife, Sarah. They returned to the family farm where they currently reside. Rick and Sarah have 3 adult children and 6 grandchildren, all who live in the general vicinity of Emerson. Rick has been actively involved in several boards and committees throughout the past 4 decades. He was active in Mills County Pork Producers, Henderson Hornets, Ambitious Andy's 4-H Club, Swine Project Leader, Mills County Fair Swine Superintendent and Trustee to their local church. In addition to the Indian Creek Historical Society, he currently serves on the Montgomery County Board of Adjustments.
Preservation Oaks. Join us for the Season 2 premiere on September 26th, only on MicroStream Radio.
Listeners, before you meet our guests, we have to let you know that the audio quality of this episode is not as clear as we like. Sometimes we get into a situation where the internet conspires to just be plain contrary to all our preparations and causes problems. Then the guests have other commitments and for one reason or another can't make the time to re-record before it's time to release the episode. And so, this episode is what it is, this time around. Oh, this episode has all the content, and it's a bit echoey. But trust us when we tell you that the content is some of the best ever on this program, and that the Indian Creek Historical Society in Hastings, Iowa is a great society, well worth the effort to pay attention to. Don't forget, during the first break at about the 30-minute point in this episode is today's book short segment featuring author Joy Neal Kidney and her books. Leora's Letters, the story of love and loss for an Iowa family during World War II, and, also, Leora Dexter Stories, the scarcity years of the Great Depression. So, please keep calm and listen on. And now, on with the program.
Welcome to the program, Bil, Jeff, Jim, and Rick.
Hey, Sean. Hi, Sean. Hello. Hi, Sean.
How's the weather out your way in Hastings, Iowa?
It's a little cool today. We had quite a bit of heat last week, but I think we're only in the 80s today. But humidity's coming back up, and we're going to get hot here again in a few days. But a nice day today, anyway.
Oh, good. The reason the society is called the Indian Creek Historical Society is because Indian Creek runs nearby. Is that right?
That's part of it, and then there's also, it's an Indian Creek Township too, anyway.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Hey, what's the history of the Indian Creek Historical Society?
There was an older gentleman up the road a ways. His name was Ben Wilson, and he had a collection of agricultural or farm exhibits, mostly tractors, but other things too, household items and clocks. And his wife collected dolls and that. And they married later in life and didn't have any children. And he was looking for a place to, when he got up in age, to where his collection was going to go. And one thing led to another. And contacted some big museums in Des Moines and such, and to be real honest about it, they said they couldn't handle his collection. It was so big, they have to split it up, and he didn't want that. And so he got to talking to some people around here, and one thing led to another, and the Indian Creek Historical Society was formed to take care of his collection.
And what was that collection?
Well, like I say, the tractor made it the most noteworthy, but like I say, his wife collected dolls and they collected wall clocks he collected anything before. He was collecting stuff before it became popular. A lot of his tractors were collected back in the 1950s and 60s before anyone really ever invented the term classic tractor. He was already saving them.
Oh, fantastic. How did the society get the land out there in Hastings?
Well, this group of men, the early ones who Ben joined with, tried to find a place for a museum. Just as I understand it, just started looking for a property. And this 20 acres, just a few miles south of where Ben lived, became available. And they got together and came to terms and purchased the land and started plans for the first building.
And so the society was started, and was the museum created right away?
Within a couple of years, they had some problems with finances and stuff like that. But I'd say within a year, they broke ground a year later, and the first building was probably completed within 2 to 3 years after they started.
Okay. What's the history of Mills County?
This is Rick, Sean. The history of Mills County goes back to 1846, when the first white establishment was made by the Mormons who left Nauvoo, Illinois in 1846. And they called that first settlement Rushville, located along Keg Creek, southwest of the present-day Glenwood. And then when the Mormons moved on, Rushville became known as Coonville, in honor of the first physician of the community, Dr. Liberius T. Coon, who settled there in 1848. Mills County was named in honor of Lieutenant Frederick Mills, a young officer from Burlington, Iowa, who was killed in the Mexican-American War. The county was originally part of Potawatomi County to the north. The general election of 1851 started the process of forming Mills County separate from Potawatomi County. The name of the county seat was changed in 1853 from Coonville, Glenwood, which is the present-day county seat. Records indicate that by March 1853, 5 townships had been established, and all of the townships were reorganized in February of 1857. That is when Indian Creek Township, after which the society was named, was formed. The earliest settlers in the county were probably the Earth Lodge Indians about 900 AD. And then the Potawatomi Indians were well established in Mills County until the federal government ordered them to leave and move to Kansas in 1842. But notable among the Potawatomi was their chief Wabansi, who refused to leave his land and remained on his land here in Mills County until his death. Early travel in the county was by way of Indian trails, which gave way to paths for the Mormon travelers and land seekers. And during the 1840s and 50s, the trail through Coonville was used by the Western Stage Line from Kingsville, now Council Bluffs, on its way to St. Joe, Missouri, and points further south. During the Civil War, the Underground Railroad was active. Covered wagons with runaway slaves stopped at Hoyt House, east of Hastings, to rest before proceeding to the home of Widow Shin, east of Macedonia, which is located north of here in Potawatomi County. The Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad built lines across the county in 1867, running east to west. That is when the nearby towns of Hastings and Emerson were formed to serve as stops for the train. The train route still exists today near the same location as the Burlington Northern Line. And as far as the topography of Mills County, The land on the west side of the county is a 3 to 7 mile floodplain along the Missouri River. The eastern edge of that floodplain meets the predominant or the dominant feature geologically of the county, which we call the Bluff Hills. These very steep hills called bluffs run north to south from Sioux City, Iowa, all the way to St. Joseph, Missouri. And as I understand it, bluff hills like these only exist in one other place in the world, someplace in China. And these hills are the remains of windblown soils that were formed at the end of the last ice age, 12 to 15,000 years ago. And then as you move further east from those bluff hills, these bluffs become more gently rolling hills, which comprise the productive farmland that makes up the majority of the county today.
Oh, very cool. Thank you very much for that. Hey, what area of the counties constitute southwest Iowa anyway?
Well, I don't think there's a formal designation, but what I think most people would consider are the 8 counties right in the corner of the state. And that would be Mills County, of course, and Montgomery, Fremont and Page, Todd County, Cass County, Taylor County, and Adams County.
Okay, thank you. That helps a lot. Can you please provide the audience with an overview of the communities you serve, the variety of your membership, and the mission and objectives of your society?
I would say mainly we serve just the people in those counties, and more tightly, Mills and Montgomery County are the main people. And, our goals are just to have this collection of events out in the public, or it's available to the public to see. We don't want it closed up somewhere where nobody can see it anymore. The members are mainly just from here in southwest Iowa and predominantly from Mills and Montgomery counties. And we have a variety of membership. It is an ag community, but it's not just farmers and ag people. We have a school teacher who's previously on the board who runs our one-room schoolhouse. We have business people that became involved in the business. And our objectives are just to keep this collection in the public's eye, not shut away somewhere. We want people to see these things and remember the past and preserve that history.
That's great. Thank you for that. Can we go round robin, starting with Bill? Can you tell our audience a little bit about your background, how you came to do what you do now at the Historical Society?
Yeah, this is Bill. I guess one day, about 20 years ago, probably the Indian Historical Society had been started for maybe about 5 years or so. And my uncle, which was on the original board, asked me if I just wanted to sit in on a meeting. He said, I'm not asking you to do anything, just sit in and see what you think anyway. And I guess after that, went to that meeting, and I came to the next one. And the next thing I knew, I was on the board anyway. So, but I farmed with, my brothers and my son about 5 miles from the museum in Red Oak, so I never got too far from home and still live here today. And like I say, the museum's about 5 miles from where I live, and so it makes it real handy to stay active with them anyway.
Great. Thank you, Bill.
This is Jim Shellhammer. I am currently the secretary of the board of directors for the museum, and my history is a little different than the 3 fine gentlemen I'm sitting with who all have a farming history. I grew up in the farm community where my grandfather and my father ran International Harvester Farm Dealership. So when I grew up from the age of 12 to 16, 17 years old, I was always working down at the store, helping out around there. So I became very acquainted, fascinated with the mechanical side of the business, the equipment, assembled combines, worked on tractors. So, I had a love of International Harvester equipment, the red ones, for years. And some years ago, I took over the presidency of another tractor club, one that was centered in Glenwood, and that was kind of running its course of less and less membership. So we moved out here and joined Indian Creek here about 6-7 years ago. And so I've maintained that relationship out here.
Oh, that's fantastic, Jim. Thank you for that. Were you the one telling me about hit and miss engines?
Yes, I first started working on tractors around the house after I got my own acreage southeast of here. And I then became fascinated with hit and miss, or also called flywheel stationary engines, and they were developed in the late 1800s up to about the mid-40s. And they were used on the farm to run equipment. Usually they'd run a belt off a flywheel, and they were running everything from a wash machine to equipment, overhead maintenance in a maintenance shed, to combines and various equipment, usually stationary equipment. So, I've since collected about 45 gas engines that I have been working on for years.
I heard you bring those out on occasion and show the public.
We do. I have the last couple of years brought out engines, a couple of them, to run during the Corn Husking Championship, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, I brought that out. I also brought a hand corn grinder, which the kids just love. I have a lineup of kids who want to grind or shell corn through my grinders.
Oh, cool.
Which is a hand operated. Yeah, it's kind of neat. They just think it's neat.
I think they're neat too. I looked them up on Google and they look really cool.
The engines?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of neat. Most of them are one cylinders, and they are slow runners, chunk, and that's just every time it hits, fires. That's called hit and miss.
Very
cool.
cool.
Cycle, it would hit on the one cycle, and the reverse cycle, it would miss.
Very cool. Thank you for that, Jim.
This is Rick. I would like to add, Jim, we have a terrific hit and miss engine, stationary engine display here at the museum, and Jim's input and guidance was critical in us getting that done, and we appreciate what he did for us there. But as far as my history, I was born here in Southwest Iowa, worked on the farm, not very many miles here from the museum, and I became interested in old tractors in the 80s. I did restore and showed John Deere two-cylinder tractors for years. We would have rivalries with the international harvester guys like Jim and had a lot of fun with it. Later on in my career, I found myself with more spare time, and I just wanted to come out here and help the museum because I really enjoy the old tractors and just showing these old things to the community.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, this is Jeff Christiansen, and I grew up not too far from the museum here too, about 6 miles. Worked for area farmers all my life. Kind of moved about 45 miles away. Started in horses all my life and got into draft horses. And knew the museum was always over here going, but never really got too involved until I was asked to come put on a demonstrations with our draft horses of obstacle course and feed team races and stuff like that. So that's how I kind of got started with the museum, and it's kind of grown from there. Got the corn husking competition brought over here to the museum. So after that, I've really become pretty involved with the museum here in the last 6 years, I guess.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I understand you're also involved with other organizations.
Yes, I'm the Southwest Iowa Draft Horse president. So we have about 45 members in our draft horse club that we show and farm with our draft horses all over Southwest Iowa and put on competitions for fairs and museums and stuff like that.
Draft horses, are those like perch Hurons?
Yes, our club has members that have got Percherons, Belgians, Brabants, and I have Shires, there's only 3,500 Shires left in the world that are registered.
Ooh.
So they're kind of a rare breed, but the Shires were an England horse that the medieval knights and stuff used to joust and fight off. So they're one of the oldest breeds of draft horses around.
Now, you're also involved beyond the horse organization. You're also involved in corn husking?
Yep. One of the draft horse members was in charge of the corn husking over at the Manna colonies, and he got it started back up in 2010 up until 2017. And in 2017, he was going to just quit it and drop it, and there was no longer going to be an Iowa competition. And I was doing a little bit of stuff for the museum at that point, and we had some ground, and I approached them and
I guess that's how I become the Cornhusker president there. So we have the Iowa Championship Cornhusking competition held here at the museum every year now.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Bill, and like I remember, my father and my grandfather back in the, like the 20s and all that, and even during the Depression, the cornhusking, Iowa State cornhusking, I guess there's 9 states that do it in the Midwest, as I understand. But I mean, that was a bigger deal than the state fairs. I mean, it was just huge. I mean, that's what everybody did, for a living anyway. And each community had their own champion, as it were. And like I say, it's just a really, really big deal. And I'm just really proud to say we have the Iowa one right here in Indian Creek.
So when is the annual Cornhusking Championship this year?
It is September 17th.
So it's still coming up?
Yes.
That's great. I hope everybody from all of the surrounding counties, Mill County, Pottawatomie, Montgomery, Fremont, you probably get people from all over the state there, right?
Yes, anybody is welcome to come husk corn from any ages, from pee-wees. If you're old enough to kind of walk and grab an ear off of the stalk of the corn, you can do it to clear up the Golden Agers, which is a class 75 and up. Last year we had a guy that was 91 years old to come out and walk with his cane and pick corn. He wanted to do it one last time before something happens to him. And so it's fun for all ages in between, and men, women, children, everything.
I imagine at the Cornhusking Championship in September, on September 17th, you'll also have food?
Yep, there'll be food. Vendors here. We have the local fire department has a pork chop dinner with sides, usually green beans or macaroni salads or something like that for minimal charge. And there's other food vendors. We also have the Junk Fest that has about 40 vendors of various booths of art, woodworking, just kind of little peddler tents or whatever. Just all sorts of knick-knack things and treasures.
That's so cool. I'll bet that's a great time. Do a lot of people normally attend that?
Yeah, we have probably somewhere, I'd say, between 400 to 1,000 people attend that day, come through. Everything's pretty much free of charge. If you want to pick a corn, there's a fee for that, and the meal, of course, is free. But we have a kids' play zone that has bounces and a train that's pulled by a lawnmower with little barrel train cars that the kids get to play, and a corn pile that they get to find money or gift items in the pile of corn that they get to play in. And
a sandbox with corn box.
Oh, that's cool. It sounds like such a good time. Hey, Bill, what's coming up on the horizon for the Society? Where are you headed next?
Well, it's hard to say. In a way, it's almost growing faster than we can handle it. But we have a blacksmith shop that we've been kind of idling along for a couple of years. Really come into being in the last short year. Groups from Omaha, believe it or not, there's still clubs of blacksmiths that want to do their trade, and they're always looking for, and they kind of took us on as a charity case, I think, but they started coming here to work, and they kind of converted our static blacksmith shop into a real working one. And that's one of the things, but, we're just always, the women do, quilting and wool weaving and that. There's lots of different aspects. It's not just a tractor museum anymore. And now that Jim's brought the cornhusking facet to it, it's, that, like I say, that I'm really proud of that. Like I said it before, but after hearing my father and grandfather talk about all the legends of cornhusking and that, I'm tickled to death to have it here.
That's great. Now, can you tell us, between you guys, you must have a few funny or interesting stories from your society's history.
Well, I don't know if other people think it's funny, but one of the things that I laughed the hardest at was, it was probably, 15 years ago, we had our first corn boil, as we call it. It's where we have a big cast iron pot they used to scald the hogs in to butcher them. And, we cook like anywhere from 20 to 50 years of corn time in it, and lift them out when they're done with the pitchfork. And local cattlemen's or pork producers and that take a grill and cook these pork chops. And so it's an ear corn, a sweet corn and pork chop, and potato salad and coleslaw affair. But the first year, I think we really didn't know what to expect. We'd never done it before, and so I think we got, I don't know if we got 200 or 300 ears of corn, but all of a sudden we realized that the line was still big, and we started to run low. And the cook, in desperation, said, "What are we going to do?" And I kind of took it as a challenge anyway. And I looked at one guy and he said, "Well, we have a sweet corn patch you're welcome to." And I said, "Okay, let's do it." And about 8 or 10 of us jumped in the back of a pickup, and he heads off to the sweet corn patch about 5 miles away. And we each had a sack, and we filled the sacks up with that and put them in the back of the pickup. And we knew we were under the gun for time. In fact, we figured they were going to be, out of food by the time we got back there, out of the corn. And so we came up with the right idea. We husked these ears of corn going down the road. And, it was kind of breezy that day, but you can about imagine this is back, long enough ago where people run to the back of the pickup. They don't allow it anymore. But there's, like I say, 6 or 8 of us in the back of the pickup, husking this corn. And of course, we just pull off a husk and toss it up in the air, and it blow off into the ditch or back in the road or whatever. And we started laughing, thinking how funny this looked, because, that many of us doing it. Quite a show, actually, anyway. Cars would come up behind us and wave and honk and, whatever, give us a high sign going down the road. And like I say, we just got to laugh and so it was funny. Next thing we know, the county deputy was coming up behind us. And we got the bright idea. We just kept doing it, throwing the shucks up and almost daring him to say something. It didn't bother us in the back, but the driver was getting real nervous because he was the one that was going to get, blamed for it. But anyway, I think he took it in the spirit, because even the shucks were starting to, some of them would hit his windshield, Anyway. I can't believe he didn't, say anything, but he finally passed us and just honked and waved, and he was laughing too. And I'll never forget that, though.
Oh, that's funny. That's really funny. 6 guys in the back of a pickup shucking corn.
Yeah, like I say, going down the highway about 6 hours.
That's great. Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, guys, but it's time for our first break for a few minutes. All right, listeners, we'll be right back after these important messages.
Pass history on by joining, donating, and volunteering at the Indian Creek Historical Society located at 59256 380th Street, Hastings, Iowa. Learn more at www.indiancreekhs.com. Please join, volunteer, donate, and visit this wonderful society today.
It's time for Preservation Oaks Book Shorts. Book Shorts is a segment of the program where we quickly introduce listeners to authors and books which satisfy your love of history and genealogy, help you with your own research, and finally help you improve the depth and wisdom of your unique family story.
On this installment of Book Shorts, we're very pleased to be joined by author Joy Neal Kidney to provide listeners with an overview of her books. Joy's books fall into the category of nonfiction books that provide insights into ancestors' lives and the places they lived. I especially like history books that allow the reader to step back in time, which these books clearly do. These books can add depth to understanding and telling your own family history. Joy Neal Kidney is an Iowa author who grew up on an Iowa farm. With God's help, Joy is aging gratefully. Living with fibromyalgia for 24 years has given her plenty of homebound days to write blog posts and books. Listeners, I want you to know that this isn't just any nonfiction teller of stories. Joy was recognized and presented with the 2021 Great American Storyteller Award. Quote, honoring the woman who most beautifully tells the story of America to Americans, unquote. This award was given by our American Stories organization and WHO News Radio 1040. You can visit Joy's website at joynealkidney.com. Joy has 3 books, the first being Leora's Letters, the story of love and loss for an Iowa family during World War II. There were 5 brothers that went to World War II, only 2 came home. Leora's Letters, the story of love and loss for an Iowa family during World War II, tells the story of the 5 Wilson brothers who are featured on the Dallas County Freedom Rock at Minburn, Iowa. Leora was their mother, and it was Joy's grandmother. The second book is Leora's Dexter Stories, the Scarcity Years of the Great Depression. The undertow of the Great Depression becomes poignantly personal as we experience the travails of Leora and Clabe Wilson, a displaced Iowa farm family. Gritty determination fuels this family's journey of loss and hope, a reflection of what many American families endured during those challenging times. In this true story, the Wilsons slowly slide into unemployment and poverty. Leora must find ways to keep her dreams alive while making a haven for her flock of 7 children in one rundown house after another. The third book, which Joy is currently working on, is called Leora's Early Years, Guthrie County Roots. It's the 3rd book in the Leora Stories series, and it's scheduled to be released this year, sometime in the late summer. Okay, Joy, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'd like to say how awesome your books are. The cool thing about these books is they tell a story about the past that anybody researching family history and having ancestors who lived during the World War II years can immediately benefit from. These books can enhance their understanding of the times and the lives of their ancestors, and that information can really assist them in telling their own family stories and might actually lead them to explore new threads of research. Can you give listeners an overview of your books?
Well, that World War II book, it had to be told because of the losses of the 3 brothers. But what it has done when people read it is they start telling me stories of their World War II relatives. You know, I just wanted to write a book. I didn't realize the connections they were going to make. The second one is called Leora's Dexter Stories, the Scarcity Years of the Great Depression. I'm just amazed at how many. I gave a talk last week, and people told their Great Depression stories. I was amazed. I do research in what's out there. So many of the Depression stories have to do with the Okies and the going to California, or they are farm families. My dad was a farm family during that time. I never heard him talk about being worried about what to eat. And my Depression era story even talks about when they had possum for supper. And at first my mother said, "Oh, don't tell them that." And I said, "Mom, your family did what they had to do to survive." They had the 7 children. The new book, The Early Years, actually goes into when Leora was born, 1890. I discovered that her grandparents were some of the very first settlers in Guthrie County, Iowa at the time.
Oh, no.
Iowa was not an old state. I think we became a state in 1846. And these ancestors came into that section of Iowa as early as 1854. So the beginning of it sketches early Iowa, early Guthrie County, and just what it was like to grow up during those years. Eventually, I'll probably do the rest of them. The next one is actually going to be the research I did to find out what happened to those 3 brothers during World War II.
Where can people get a copy of your book? What's the best
Well,
place?
they are self-published through Amazon on KDP. But if you would like an autographed copy, we have an indie bookstore here in Des Moines called Beaverdale Books. The phone number is 515-279-5400, and they will ship them. So that's a nice connection to be able to also benefit an indie bookstore.
Joy, I'd like to thank you for your time today. and for your great books, for your great stories. Listeners, pick up a copy of these excellent books. They have real-life, true information that can help you shape your family history. So thank you, Joy, for being a guest on Book Shorts.
And thank you, Sean, for inviting me.
Good luck with your new book coming out later this summer entitled Leora's Early Years, Guthrie County Roots. You come back anytime, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Thomas Radcliff, and we are here today with Bil McGrew, President of the Board of Directors at the Indian Creek Historical Society located in Hastings, Iowa. Bill has brought with him some other leaders of the society. We have Jeff Christiansen, who is a board member of the Indian Creek Historical Society and president of the Iowa Cornhusking Association and president of the Southwest Iowa Draft Horse Association. We have Jim Shellhammer, secretary of the Indian Creek Historical Society, and Rick Mabary, the treasurer of the Indian Creek Historical Society. Let's pick up where we left off. We just heard a funny story about running out of corn for the corn boil and 6 guys in the back of a pickup truck shucking corn all the way down the road and had to go get more sweet corn from a sweet corn patch. Does anyone else want to share a funny story?
Well, this is Bill again, Sean, but another thing that I always think about every year when we get the thrashing machine out is one day we were getting ready, the local town of Emerson has an annual, parade anyway, called Emerson Day, like a lot of small communities have. But anyway, we decided we were going to take our thrashing machine in there. And you got to realize that this thrashing machine was made in 1928, so it didn't have rubber tires on it. It had steel tires. And there's no bearings in the wheels, they're just bushings. And we were going to pull it, like 8 miles into town, and then take it through the parade. And I just kind of got to thinking, I was working with this other older fellow named Paul, that we were just getting this machine ready to go down the road and go on the parade and that. And I thought, well, if it's going to go down the road that far, I better grease the wheels on it. Well, I just happened to have my pickup there, and in the back of it was a DeWalt, cordless grease gun. Now, nowadays they're pretty common, but back then they were just starting to come out, so it was kind of new. And for people that aren't familiar with greasing a thrashing machine, there's a lot of grease strips on it, and a lot of them are kind of hard to get to, so there's a rubber hose on the end of the grease gun, which takes one hand. Then it takes another hand to hold the grease gun, and then another one to pump it. In other words, it takes 3 hands and a monkey to run this grease gun. Well, if you have a cordless one like they came out with, you just put one hand on the grease gun into the grease gun hose and the other one on the switch for pulls the grease gun, and just makes it easy, but it makes kind of a roaring pumping sound. And I was there by the wheels, putting grease into these spindles, and just kind of go whir, 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 like that. And all of a sudden this older fellow that he was kind of our guru, really, knows all about the older stuff and that. And all of a sudden he comes over to me and goes, just how dumb do you think I am? And I thought for a minute, I go, I don't think you're dumb at all. I think you're pretty smart. He says, making me think you're putting air in these steel tires. And I go, no, it's a grease gun. He goes, what? And I showed him this electric grease gun. He goes, can I see that? And I said, sure. And I handed it to him. Next thing I wanted to grease the whole machine having a grand old time with it. But I thought, besides being kind of cool and that, I thought, a lot of these little guys get criticized for not, accepting the new ways. But here he said, I like that anyway. He said, I'm going to give you one of those.
Oh, that's good. Hey, what kinds of facilities do you have and what exhibits are on display?
This is Jim speaking. I'll explain the museum complex to you best I can. Our main museum is actually 2 buildings that are joined together for an L shape, and within those those buildings, we have a lot of antiques, anywhere from stoves and waste from tractors and all kinds of toys and kitchen utensils and old lamps and old projectors. It's a real eclectic arrangement of equipment for early pioneer. We have items that are probably date from the early 1900s to about the 50s and 60s. And everything we have here has been donated by a local family, and we just put it out for display so people can see it. And in the next three buildings to the north of the main museum, we have three equipment sheds, and they're modern buildings. And most of the building are filled with tractors or farm equipment, and we have a couple some very interesting, unique items in that. We have a tractor that runs on propane, and we have the old oil pole, which is a older hit and miss, basically, gas engine that ran on kerosene. And our third building, which is something that I'm near and dear to my heart, was that we have it built up shelves and have on display about 45 gas engines, the hit and miss flywheel engines. And we have everything from half a horse up to 12 and 14 horse engines. Now, a couple of our bigger engines are too big for the put up on shelves. They're actually sitting on they're horse-drawn carriages, and they were towed around with the horse poles on the front. And they were big engines. They were used in the farm equipment. And we have those on display, and occasionally we'll bring a few of them out once in a while and start them up. Then south of our main building, we have a horse barn that was transported here some years ago, donated by another family, and we brought that up, and we now have that barn filled with a lot of horse tack for people to display. And then beside that is our welding shop. And in the welding shop, not only have 3 or 4 working blacksmith forges, but we also have some other equipment. We have eventually we want to build is an overhead pulley system that would run on a hit-miss engine with a flywheel. And that was used to power certain drills and reamers and all kinds of equipment you would use in a machine shop. Then we have the creek that runs down to the middle of the property. Across the creek, we have an old 1870s schoolhouse. And that schoolhouse has been semi-restored, and it has chairs and books. And when we have the museum open, people can go in there and see what it was like to sit and try to educate in a one-room schoolhouse. Then beside that building is an old log cabin. Now, we're told it is one of the first or very early log cabin was built in Mills County. And that also was transported here and set up for people to see what it was like in the log cabin here. And things that we have, something that I would like to add is our main museum is set up for a banquet facilities, which is very farm related. Just a bunch of long tables set up with chairs, and that's where we hold our monthly breakfast, which we hold on the 4th Sunday of every month. And that is we cook up eggs and ham and meatloaf and biscuits and gravies, and something we're well known for in the community and that people always ask about is our lemon and pecan roast, which the ladies come in at 5 o'clock in the morning and start preparing for our Sunday morning breakfast, which runs, like I said, the 4th Sunday of every month, and it is free. We collect goodwill donations, a free will offering, only for anything we do at the museum. So the breakfasts are well attended. We have anywhere from 200 to 400 people to come out for that, and constantly asked by the local, when you're going to have your breakfast, or when is you going to have it this week?
Very cool. Now, you have Ben Wilson's antique farm equipment displayed there. How many tractors or how many pieces of equipment would you say are there?
Well, we started out with, we used to say there was like 70, 80 old tractors all the way from real early 1918 up to, we have a few, about the newest one we have would be like, say, 1940 or 50. But a lot of them were in the 20s and 30s. But like was alluded to earlier, there's what makes our collection kind of unique is there's everything from red farmholes to green John Deeres to yellow Minneapolis Moblines to there's names like Jim said, like Rumleys that a lot of people never even heard of anyway. But back in the day were kind of popular, good machines. And that, but we're kind of proud of the fact that, by far the most of them still run yet anyway, but it's a real challenge to keep them running or challenge. Like I say, we used to start them every year, but like a lot of groups, labor is kind of hard to come by and knowledge to do it. And, some of them it's been, 3-5 years since they've run. I have no doubt what they wouldn't, but that's one of the things we got to work on is to make sure that we can still make the claim that they still run.
Yeah, that sounds right. Do you guys have any collections exhibited anywhere else in the county, like at the county fair or the county courthouse or any schools or any of that?
Well, I don't know if you really call it exhibiting a collection, but we like to take a lot of times a tractor to the county fairs, like say the Malvern Fair for Mills County and the Red Oak Fair for Montgomery County. Quite often we'll take one of the older tractors there and let the kids climb around on it and the people come by and say, yeah, my father had one just like that and whatever. And when time permits and that, quite often we'll take a hand-cranked corn sheller like Jim was talking about earlier. And like I say, that's always the head of the building. Like it says, the kids just love to turn that crank. And then the grandparents and parents sit there and shake their head and say, back when we had to do it, we hated it. But he said, when you watch these kids, and I tell you, they can shell a pickup load of your corn in one afternoon if you allow them anyway.
Yeah, that's great.
So but they just kind of have this real. They just love turning cranks, like Jim said.
Jim, yeah, I remember one year when I had my sheller out there, and I had this one girl. She was probably 8 or 9 years old, and she would crank 1 or 2 years, and then she'd leave. She'd come back 5 minutes later and want to do it again. And she did that probably a dozen or 2 dozen times to the point where her parents were trying to pull her away. But she just loved it so much.
Oh, that's great. Hey, you're passing on history.
And this is Rick. Add what Bill said. Some of these we've done. Our local John Deere dealership usually has a big tractor demonstration in the fall, and I know they've had us bring our 1918 Waterloo boy to show at that, just to show the contrast between this first tractor that John Deere ever built and these modern tractors today. And it always got a lot of attention there at their show. So
I bet it's changed quite dramatically.
The contrasts are quite large between the two.
Yeah.
We also, this is Jim again, a couple of things we haven't talked about yet is that we also participate, some of our members participate in tractor drives, and they will drive their old machines around and come back to the museum and have a little good times together, maybe have a meal together. We also occasionally will support a tractor show at a local hardware store, and we've even taken a bunch down to the city of Omaha. And the third thing, or another thing that we do, is every Wednesday night of the third Wednesday of the month, we do a movie night, and we pull up old tractor movies or plowing days or whatever. I've even brought a couple of my hit and miss museum movies that I had and shown them. So anything farm related, we try to get some old movies and pull it up on a big screen TV.
We pop some popcorn And, 12 to 20 guys just sit around and, sometimes if we don't shut it off, I think they'd sit and watch them all night long. But, we start at 7 o'clock and, try to kind of wind it up by 9 o'clock if we can. But it's pretty real informal, but a lot of people enjoy it.
That sounds great. Hey, when is the next breakfast?
Our last breakfast is actually this past Sunday.
2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago. So our next one will be the fourth Sunday of the month in August.
28th.
28th.
Which
Okay.
is the 28th.
That's great. What kind of funding model supports the society? What are your funding goals this year?
This is Rick. I'll address that. First of all, like the other guys have said, we don't charge for anything here. So we just do rely on donations. And we do get grants specifically from the Community Foundation of Southwest Iowa. We have a couple of endowments in our name that were set up by Ben and Delia Wilson, who donated the majority of the collection. And Charles Lakin also created an endowment for us, so that helps out quite a bit annually. Mills County is always good to give us a little bit every year. People do recognize us in their memorials, and that has been a significant source of income there too. And as mentioned before, we do have a meeting hall here to charge rent for that, a modest rent that provides some income. And when people come in, they ask, how much does it cost? And as I said, we tell them it doesn't cost anything. We do ask that you leave a donation if you think you are worth it when you're all done. And we have a big donation box here at the front. We do have dues for members every year, and it's a modest fee too. It's $10 for an individual, $15 for a family. We also have various fundraising events, which we've talked about a little bit. The monthly breakfast, which draws 150 to 300 people, and that's just a great community event. You just sit back at the front and you watch these groups of people who haven't seen each other in quite some time, and there are various conversations going on. They finish their breakfast and they sit there for another hour just catching up with people they haven't seen in a while. And these conversations are going on all across the room. So people really enjoy that. And the corn boil we talked about is another fundraising. We do make some money from that, from our donations. And the Iowa Hand Corn Husking event, of course, is a money maker for us too. We do have our sponsor board for people that want to sponsor that event. And they can get their name on the board for $225 for a gold membership, $150 for a silver membership, or $75 for a bronze. And that pretty much helps cover all the costs of the corn husking.
What kind of board is it?
Sponsor board. And it's just a big, roughly 10 by 12 piece of, it's aluminum actually. And we have vinyl signs applied to it and our sponsors' names. So it's right there for everybody to see at what level they donated and they're sponsoring our event.
Oh, that's great.
It's kind of a nice little visual for everybody. We do collect contestant fees, as Jeff said, for the corn husking, or the corn husking board does, and those are donated back to the museum.
Oh, that
and
sounds
of course, we have to have corn for this corn husking event. So in part of our ground here, we grow a 6-acre patch of corn, and our sponsors cover all the expenses. So the income we get from selling that corn also goes to the museum, which is a nice little income source for us. And as far as our goals, we do have some long-term goals that are not really set in stone. We're going to need more buildings at some point in time. And we talked about different kinds of buildings, possibly short tractors because they're really tight. Some other ideas is some of our members like to bring in an old church. Something that was built in the 19th century. If we could find the right building to move in and set that up over close to our schoolhouse, or possibly set up like a mercantile store representation, because we have tons of items in the museum that could be displayed there, and we could really stock it to make it look like a period store. None of those goals are set in stone or solid, but those are things that are working forward, and we really need the money available before we start a project like that, because buildings are expensive, so we're working in that direction.
Oh, that's great. Hey, do you guys have a gift shop at all?
We not really per se. We do have T-shirts that are made up with the museum's name on them, and some hand corn husking T-shirts that we do sell, and usually hats. But that's really all we sell. Not a lot, but it's just there for somebody that wants a little memento from the museum.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Rick, for that. You guys do any education with school children, or what kind of outreach and education does the society undertake within the community?
Yeah, this is Bill again. One thing we're all pretty much in agreement on is the kids anyway. Well, the kid can about ride their own chicken around here. If they want to participate in demonstrations or just learn something, some of them are good enough to ask, well, how do you actually do this? And any of our guys or girls are glad to show them. Like I say, the women will put on weekly, sometimes in the wintertime, weekly yarn spinning and wool weaving and stuff like that. And well, one thing we do like a lot of times, once the weather turns good in the spring toward the end of the school year, like the local up here, it's called East Mills School now. You know, it's just, about a quarter mile away, all but next door. But they'll bring the kids down here to our one-room schoolhouse and hold school for a day, and let them see like to have, several classes all the way from first grade to fourth grade, I believe, in the one-room schoolhouse with just one teacher and that. And there's they'll come from Red Oak, to do. But like I say, if they're a kid, they can about write their own ticket around here.
That sounds great. Do you guys publish a newsletter?
We do not.
Okay.
We're have in works the expansion of a new website for us, and once we get that up and running, which could be a couple of months down the road, we got someone right now working on that. We hope to have a lot more information available through the actual website. We also have the Facebook site for Indian Creek Historical Society, which has pictures and a couple of videos out there, so people can log in there and find out information. We use the Facebook a lot for our communication, for people asking questions. There are two members, I am one of them, who are on the email list. So as soon as someone posts a Facebook message to the museum, we'll get notified of the comment or questions they're asking. So one of us usually answers that question fairly quick.
Do you use the Facebook to keep the community informed about the progress of the society and achieving the mission?
Quite a bit, yeah. I think people ask us all the time, or let us know when we forgot to put something on Facebook for an upcoming event that something's missing. So yeah, we get, I would say when I post something on Facebook, I think reach an audience of anywhere from 100 to 150 people. And those are usually only local people.
That sounds great. Do you do presentations at the monthly breakfast, or do you have an annual meeting where people can attend?
We have an annual meeting. That's usually in the early part of the year. We do that as a way of voting in the new board members. We rotate a member every 3 years, so and we offset that every year. So we have every year we have anywhere from 2 to 3 members that are rotating as far as being on the board.
Thank you for that. Beyond the tractors and the other, machinery artifacts, have any kind of records or photographs or any of that been donated?
Well, yeah, this is Bill. The local 4-H clubs back, I'm going to say, time gets away from me, but 10, 20 years ago, I guess there was a government mandate that you couldn't have a boys or a girls 4-H club. It has to be, co now anyway. So a lot of these clubs basically were forced to disband and then reorganize as a boy-girl club. Well, there's all these years worth of records and stuff like from the historians and that they really didn't know what to do with. Well, I guess the logical place was to bring them down here, and we kind of store them. We wish we could display them a little better, but if anybody asks, we sure can. But it's really fun to look back, 40 years ago and look at what they were doing back then, because a lot of times it's the kids that are in those pictures and that, or, today's kids' grandparents.
Wow, so you've got some 4-H records?
And then another thing, if I could, Sean, the local school up here reorganized a few years ago, and for whatever reason, all the old senior pitchers and the sports trophies and that, they were encouraged to not have them on display anymore in the school because somehow somebody thought that, they wouldn't, it'd still feel like they were individual rivalries and such, I guess, for lack of better words.
Huh.
So we ended up with a lot of with all the senior pitchers and stuff. And in fact, I'm one of them anyway. And a lot of the kids, a lot of their parents are in those pictures. And the sports trophies, have names that we've all heard of. But it's kind of almost fun to see a trophy that, has somebody's name on it. Well, they might be 75 or 80 years old now, but they were, state basketball champions back in the day. So, like I say, we're not just all farm stuff, but even though the majority is, but like I say, the school pictures and trophies, we're pretty proud of that exhibit too.
Yeah,
and there's other things, like we have our ex-congressman's desk that he had when he was in Washington, D.C., and all sorts of memorabilia from that. We'll make a display out of that someday soon too.
Wow. You guys are evolving into quite an organization. You may have a reference library someday.
Well, someday anyway. Like say, books, you wouldn't think so, but anymore, everything's online and computers. Books are just kind of a rare thing. We have several sets of encyclopedias, but nobody wants an encyclopedia set anymore. But it's kind of fun it's still something special to thumb through a book instead of, looking on the screen.
So with all that going on with your annual events and your fundraising events and so on and so forth, I don't know if you do holiday events at Christmas, but you must have a large need for volunteers. How are you doing on volunteers?
Yeah, this is Rick. We could use volunteers at all of our events.
That's an understatement.
We definitely could use even the monthly breakfast. It's the same crew working really hard, and we could always use a few more members. The girls in the back doing the pecan rolls and the sweet rolls, I'm sure would enjoy some help and not have to be here every Sunday. At our thrashing day we usually have, there's just a handful of guys here doing the work,
and we welcome more help getting the machinery in and out of the buildings and helping display it that way. And probably our biggest need for help is at the corn husking event. We have to have judges who we call either timers or cleaners, and there's a big need for those people to be there. It's not a hard job. It's very easy to explain what to do, but we just need people to fill those spots to keep the event going. And then there's all sorts of other jobs associated with that day that would make it easier. And they're not hard. They're actually kind of fun. You get to, meet a lot of people, see a lot of things, and it's a great way to spend an afternoon. But if somebody wants to come, we've got all sorts of things we'd be glad for them to do for us.
We're not hard to approach anyway. We'll find something that they'll enjoy doing. They don't need to be afraid to ask. But like Jeff, tell them how many people it takes. Someone's got to empty the wagons and weigh the corn for the contest. And it takes quite a crew just for that.
Yeah, it takes 25, 30 people just to put on our corn husking competition. We try to get FFA groups or 4-H clubs to come and get the younger kids involved in volunteerism, doing things around the museum.
Yeah,
just because somebody's doing it doesn't mean they really look forward to doing it all day long after they've done it for half a day. It'd be nice if someone would take over for them so they could watch or even compete in the contest.
Yeah, it's a good point.
This is Rick again, and also not just work opportunities. We're always open to somebody who wants to be on the board of directors and be involved in leadership and planning. More young people would be great, and anybody that's interested in that, we'd be more than willing to talk to and happy to have around.
Oh, that's great.
Guys, this is Jim.
Yep.
earlier question you asked about kind of record keeping or historical artifacts, that's something that a volunteer who had the interest in genealogy or agricultural history, something along that lines. I mean, we have a tremendous amount of books and references for equipment. We have history of Mills County members, owners, things about past information about people here that could use a very good cleaning and organization to get it in order so that it could be eventually digitized and put on the internet.
Yeah, that sounds like the way to go. That would be a great collection for being online. And some archivist or curator or historian would do well to dig into that.
We're all thumbs up here about that.
I imagine. Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's time for our second break for a few minutes. Listeners, we'll be right back after these words.
Explore the history of Southwest Iowa with the Indian Creek Historical Society, located in your own hometown and nestled in the heart of Mills County. Bring your family, bring a friend, or just come on down to learn more about why they love Mills County, Iowa. And don't forget that they have a monthly breakfast for everyone. Donate, join, volunteer, and visit us today at 59256 380th Street, Hastings, Iowa. The website is www.indiancreekhs.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hello, if you're craving a sense of accomplishment and self-respect, then look no further than by helping yourself and your community by learning more about volunteering with the museums, historical, and genealogical societies in your area. It's important to find a source of information that keeps you up to date about these valuable societies. The right choice is a program that's done the research for you, and that's where Preservation Oaks comes in. Every episode presents you with an all-inclusive experience with one of our nation's museums, historical, and genealogical societies that we refer to as our Preservation Oaks. The wrong choice results in you just getting a short introduction to the organization and leaving you right where you started, which is not knowing enough to make that commitment to help yourself and your community by supporting a society. Listen to Preservation Oaks, providing a bi-weekly series of programs with a variety of museums, historical, and genealogical society guests. Rather than just giving you a too brief introduction to the society, we spend the time to have fun and give you the history and the stories behind the society. What valuable services they offer to their members and the public, how they provide value to the community, and most importantly, how you can get involved and help. On Preservation Oaks, you'll get all the information you need to accelerate and lock in your decision to volunteer, support, visit, and become a member. You'll be glad you did. Remember, you can always send us comments and suggestions to preservationoaks@gmail.com.
This is Tom Spindler from the Norman Borlaug Heritage Foundation, and I love listening to Preservation Oaks on Micro Stream Radio.
This is Stacy Gosling, the president of the Winneshiek County Historical Society, and I enjoyed being a guest on the program.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. We're here today with Bil McGrew, president of the board of directors at the Indian Creek Historical Society located in Hastings, Iowa, and his colleagues, Jeff Christiansen, Jim Shellhammer, and Rick Mabary. We've learned so much, guys. It's been great talking with you. Thank you for the information you provided to our audience about your society, and welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Hey,
Thanks, John.
We're having fun.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Hey, what kind of things are available to do on your society's website?
This is Rick, Sean. Unfortunately, at this time, I Our website, as I think Jim alluded to, it's rather antiquated and a bit broken. We're working on a new one to where we will be able to do some things, be able to communicate with us on that new website, and you'll be able to see what's going on at the museum in a more timely fashion than we're able to provide now. My apologies on that, but we're working on it, and it's going to get better.
And it's going to be great, I'm sure. When do you expect that to be done?
I expect it in a couple of months.
Okay, yeah, it takes a while. Besides Facebook, and I know you use Facebook, and you have a website that you're redoing, do you guys take videos at all and post them on YouTube or any of that?
We have not done that. That's a great idea, though.
We've done a couple of videos, and they've been posted either on the old website, which is not working, or I know there's one up on Facebook. A couple of years ago, we had someone did a drone of our Cornhusker Championship, and it was done by a local TV station. And I captured that and posted that up on the website. As soon as we get the new website up, we'll have that available for people to view.
Oh, that's great. So the website's not functional or not completely functional at this point. What's the easiest method for members of the public to donate to the society?
Mail would be to our Hastings address.
So mail is the best way? Write a check, send it in the mail?
That would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. Let me give the contact information for the society. Their website is www.indiancreekhs.com. You can also find them on Facebook, Indian Creek Historical Society. You can mail them at 59256 380th Street, Hastings, Iowa, 51540. And you can phone them at 712-824-7730.
John, this is Jim. Let me reiterate. Sarah and I do keep the Facebook events page for the museum current. So any of your breakfasts, any of the big events we've got going on, we will have that posted in the events page under our Facebook site.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that.
And that's current.
Now, I know we've talked about quite a few things. Can you tell the audience about any current initiatives or needs of the society that you want the people of your area and your members to know about and support?
This is Bill. Like we talked about earlier, our blacksmith shop is really starting to take off. We can always use more people interested in all the way from actually working in it to just watching to if they have items they want to donate, like bisons and animals and such. So we still need more of that because as a matter of fact, if you don't mind me talking about it right now, later this fall in September, they're going to have what they call I don't know if they call it a conference and such, but basically they hire somebody from, quite a ways away that's considered an expert, like TV expert worthy wise. And other blacksmiths pay a pretty hefty fee to come and listen to this gentleman and learn from him for, say, 2 days and a night. And we just now, as of 2 days ago, built a new permanent brick forge that they lit a fire in last Sunday for the first time. But besides that, there's 3 or 4 other forges. So when this seminar comes around, like I say, there'll be at least 4 different stations, each with a forge, a vise, an anvil, whatever. In each station, there'll be 2 to 3 blacksmiths working at it, so they can kind of be working along as this, guru tries to tell them how he would do such things. And so, like I say, the blacksmith shop's just starting to really take off. And like for another example, we have an old sawmill that was donated to us, several years ago. And we need somebody that's had experience with sawmills to kind of teach us, where and how to set it up and how to use it and that. A lot of people like watching them doing it, but we could sure use some help and advice on how to get that thing going too anyway.
All right, that's great. So you need some help standing up the sawmill and getting it
operational. We have the old one that was removed from the site. That person a fella and his father used to run years ago, but he's, too elderly to really help us set it up now anyway. He has pictures in his mind, of course, but there is people around that do run sawmills and that we would really enjoy having. We need their help is what we need.
Yep, that sounds good.
It's open to the public, of course, anyway, but the main feature is the blacksmiths that actually pay to come do it. But the public's welcome to come watch too all day.
Oh, that's great. That will be a great thing. Folks, what are your thoughts about how best to keep history and community support flourishing for the current generation, the K through 12 kids?
This is Rick, and I guess my thoughts are we just need to keep this in front of them. We need to do our events and have this stuff out there and get the young people here to look at it. That's the only way they're going to get interested in it. If we just leave it in these buildings shut up, how are they going to know what's here or gain any interest in it? So I guess we're just trying to keep it out there and show them how it works, and hopefully the interest flowers from there.
And this is Jeff, and this to get their hands on and get them involved of how the actual piece of equipment works, whether it's with horses or a piece of equipment or whatever, see how it actually operates, moves, how it hooks up, or why they invented it to do the jobs they did back then.
Can you guys give me your thoughts on why the society is important to your community and what makes your society different or unique from others?
We think we're a little different. I'm sure there's other agricultural museums and that, but I don't think very many. There's a lot for artwork and stuff like that. Great. But as far as the actual early agricultural part of it, we think we're one of the few that have tried to preserve those ways and knowledge in the equipment.
This is Jim. I will augment a little bit what Bill's saying. In the area where we're at, which is the prairie area of the West, we have a lot of typical equipment that you probably don't find in many museums. Getting those in front of people is very important, and letting them know that we're mainly an agriculture-related museum, and that's predominant. We don't do anything based solely on history or war or anything that's typical in other cities or town museums. We are out in the country, and we like to hold events where we can bring out a piece of equipment and demonstrate it. And so keeping it in front of the people to see how it's going on and keeping that history alive is important to us.
Yep, well said, Jim. Thank you. Now, you mentioned that people get free admission to the museum, free monthly Sunday breakfast, and you ask for a donation. You pay for membership, and you rent out the main museum building. Is there any other services that, a member or a member of the public needs to pay for?
No, there's none that I come to mind right now.
That's really a valuable proposition because you can have a lot of fun.
A lot of people, they have guests come on holidays or vacation time or whatever. A lot of them just like to bring their guests to show them what we've got too. Anyway, we've said we've got things that you don't, the place.
You've got tractors and equipment that people can't see anywhere else.
Among a lot of other things too, but yeah, that's what we're probably that's what really started the museum was the tractors, but it's grown into much, much more.
Yep. Let me give the contact information real quick to listeners. So listeners, you can find Indian Creek Historical Society on the web at IndianCreekHS.com. You can find them on Facebook, Indian Creek Historical Society. You can mail them at 59256 380th Street, Hastings, Iowa, 51540. And you can phone them at 712-824-7730.
Yes, and Sean, I don't think we've mentioned our operating hours.
Go ahead.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 10 to 2, and Sunday, 12 to 4. And, we do our best to work with people, especially if they have a group that want to come outside those hours. if you would either call the museum's phone number during operating hours or reach out on Facebook. I know Bill tries his very best to be here for a group. If we're outside of our busy seasons, we'll really work with people.
We'll find someone to show them around.
That's great. Thank you.
And we enjoy having groups too, like, nursing homes and such are big. We enjoy showing those folks around too.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. Is there room for handicapped folks?
The main building's very handicapped accessible. The other machine sheds, while they tend to have gravel floors because of our steel lug tractors, but you can still drive a scooter or golf cart around. We have a golf cart on the grounds and that, but if they have their own chair or scooter, they'll get along just fine.
Okay, thank you for that. Reflecting just a bit, how do you think your members, volunteers, and the community view the society in terms of benefits and value?
This is Rick. Well, I think they view us very highly, and I relate some stories back during COVID. People were worried about how we were doing. Of course, we had to shut down our monthly breakfasts and some of our activities, and people would ask, how are you getting along, and when are you going to be able to do that again? And some people continued making donations, even though they weren't coming to the breakfast. So they were very interested in us getting started back up again and concerned, and glad when we came back and were able to go back to operations as normal.
Sean, this is Jim. I live outside of Glenwood, and so I'm on the local Glenwood community site regularly. And when breakfast time comes around or events are happening, I get a lot of posts out there. When is it happening? So I repost back as soon as I give that question to people, and I get a lot of thank yous from people. And even though we're about 15 minutes from Glenwood, we get a lot of people from there.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you're getting compliments because you guys are doing a lot of great things for the community. I just love what you're doing, especially the corn husking and all of the tractors and showing the blacksmithing. And it just sounds like a great community effort, and I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you, Bill, Jeff, Jim, and Rick for spending time with us today. I've learned a lot, had a great time, and I'm really glad to meet you. It's just very inspiring seeing what you're doing at the Indian Creek Historical Society for the community, for your members. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
I want to remind listeners that the next monthly breakfast is on August 28th. And on September 17th, you want to put that on your calendar. That's the Corn Husking Championship and the Junk Fest, Southwest Iowa Junk Fest, which sounds like a great time. And with that, we'll end our time with our guest, Bil McGrew, President of the Board of Directors at the Indian Creek Historical Society and Museum. Listeners, please stay tuned for my comments and wrap-up, which is coming up next.
You're listening to Preservation Oaks, where we celebrate the great work of historical and genealogical societies and give you the information you need to get involved and have fun doing it.
You're tuned in to Preservation Oaks. Stream us from wherever you get your podcast. We're with you anywhere you go.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
All right, welcome back. I need to apologize for the audio on this interview. It's not up to our normal standards. The engineers did their best to clean up the audio issues, but there's only so much they can do. I'm afraid the internet was working against us throughout the entire recording session. The Society's leadership team wasn't able to carve out time to re-record before we needed to release the episode, and so it is what it is for this one anyways. In this episode, we learned about the history of the Society, the history of Mills County, and all about the Society's funding, their events, artifacts, and other details. The main thing we learned is how committed the Indian Creek Historical Society members are to the furtherance of the Society's mission and to the communities they serve. It was great chatting with Bil McGrew, Jim Shellhammer, Rick Mabary, and Jeff Christiansen. These are such great guys. If you're a listener in the area of Southwest Iowa and you're not already a member of the Indian Creek Historical Society, please by all means sign up, support them, and volunteer. They really have a very unique museum and they sponsor great events for the community. They have agricultural equipment you can't find anywhere else, plus a one-room schoolhouse and a working blacksmith shop. Annually, they have corn boils, pork chop dinners, Iowa State corn husking contests, Southwest Iowa Junk Fest, and other worthwhile and fun events. They also have a breakfast for all the members and the community every single month, the last Sunday of the month. The society promotes community spirit and acts as the glue that holds the community and their members together. The Society is very proud of the fact that nearly everything at the museum is free. There's no charge for anything except some of the incidentals for the events and, of course, membership. However, membership is a nominal fee of $10 per year for an individual and $15 for a family. That's a steal. For the events and the monthly breakfast, all they ask is for free will donations. I sincerely enjoyed chatting with these folks and learning more about the Society. By the way, the next community monthly breakfast is August 28th. The most pressing priorities of the Society at this time are, number one, they need someone to help them stand up their sawmill. They have all the equipment, but they need someone with the experience to show them how to get it going. Number two, they need more people to volunteer. With all the events they have, they need volunteers to help them with the work of managing these events. There's an especially urgent need for volunteers for the Corn Husking Championship in the form of judges. They need people to do all kinds of things, but especially judges. They also made an appeal for anyone in Southwest Iowa who is good with genealogy or history to please help them organize, catalog, and digitize their large books and records collection. This would be very much appreciated and a fantastic challenge for someone with the right skills. If you can help the Society with any of these three priorities, please connect with them. By the way, the Society has a meeting hall and banquet facility with a full kitchen for rent for anyone in the area for meetings, wedding receptions, and other events. Please connect with the Society to schedule. Remember that this year's Iowa State corn husking competition is on September 17th, and that corresponds with the Southwest Iowa Junk Fest and the Volunteer Fire Department's pork chop dinner. It's a big deal, and if I lived in the area, I wouldn't miss it for anything. Please connect with the Society and get yourselves down there. There's also plenty of things for kids to do. The Society is supported 100% by donations and volunteers. Please help support the Indian Creek Historical Society located in Hastings, Iowa today. You folks in Southwest Iowa are surely lucky to have this fine society in your area. The contact information for the Society is, their website is www.indiancreekhs.com. You can find them on Facebook under Indian Creek Historical Society. Their mailing address is 59256 380th Street, Hastings, Iowa 51540. You can call them at 712-824-7730. There were 1,000 questions I could have asked during our time together, but I didn't in the interest of time. If questions occur to you and you'd like more information, please connect with the Society via the contact information provided in this program. If you're a listener in the area the Society serves and you're not already a member, please consider joining and supporting the Society. I hope this information helps the audience understand how valuable the Society is to the community and what kinds of excellent services they have to offer to their members and the public. I can tell you without reservation that the Indian Creek Historical Society located in Hastings, Iowa is definitely and truly one of our nation's preservation oaks. Okay, that's a wrap for this episode. Music used today is from Scott Holmes and Cymbalbird and Chris Hagen. Microstream Radio is a registered trademark. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted by Microstream Radio. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere without the written permission of Microstream Radio. Thanks to everyone for listening. This is Sean Thomas Radcliff. See you all next time on Preservation Oaks.